Alright, welcome back to my full build video on the RC10B6.4 two-wheel drive buggy. For this video, I'm going to be doing bag 5, which is the gear differential setup. Again, this is for the carpet car, so it's the gear differential. And for this step, I am going to be using two things that are not supplied in the kit. I'm going to be using the aluminum diff cover in lieu of this plastic one. I've had issues with that plastic one not sealing up correctly, and so I always use the aluminum one for my builds. And then I'll get into more details, but I'm gonna build a 2-gear diff. And so I got this magnesium solid diff pen from Brood Racing. Eddie's a good friend of mine, and he sent me these are pre-production parts. You can't buy them the mag version. He does sell aluminum and steel or aluminum and tie versions of it though. So if you want to pick up a solid pen for a 2-gear, go visit Team Brood. Otherwise, you can just use this plastic cross pen and only put 2 gears on it. And like I said, we'll get into the details of that. The diff cover is right there, the part number from Team Associated, so if you want to pick that up. Alright, so let's get started. First step in this build is you want to put the O-rings in the diff, and I like to use this red grease to lubricate them. It's I bought it from the auto parts store. It's called N Tacky. I always build all my diffs, all my cars with this stuff. Just had good luck with it, sealing things up, and so that's how I do it. If you don't have this N Tacky, then use the supplied, there's some black grease that's supplied with the kit, and so then go ahead and use that on these O-rings. It will also work. Again, put a little grease on that. Same thing here. We're gonna rotate as we enter that, seal that in. And just wipe any excess grease that you find there, and then put a little grease on that one side here. Drop that washer in. Alright, so let's put a little grease on this O-ring here, and we insert it in. Again, you can use the plastic one if you don't have this. I would highly recommend, though, this is in my mind, somewhat of an essential upgrade for performance, just because these things don't like to seal very well, the plastic one. So yeah, put a little grease on the Outdrive shaft, and then you're going to push this and rotate it. And then if any grease squirts out of the bottom of the Outdrive, then just wipe that excess off. Then we're going to get this small washer here, and I'm going to just put a little grease on one side of it. Actually wipe that excess off, and then drop that washer down. I can wipe my hands off for a minute here, and so then you're going to push that washer down, and you're going to insert this pen, and there's a little notch right here you can see that notch that's in the housing. You have to move the hole over to that so you can get this pin in. So you stick that in. Then this washer, if you can't get that to go down, I just stick the sun gear in here for a minute and then drop the sun gear out. And then the same thing with this hole, you can align it to where the cross shafts go in to give yourself some space. And I like to use these medical hemostats to put this one in. If you don't have these, you can use like a pair of needle nose pliers and you just stick that in like so and try to get that pin as centered as you can, and then drop this sun gear in, drop this sun gear in, capture those pins. Then I'm going to put this gasket on. I like to put a little layer of this red and tacky on the gasket. Just helps to seal everything and also keep this gasket down when you install it. I think the manual only tells you to do the one side, but I prefer to do both. I just want to make sure things get nice and sealed up, and it doesn't take a ton of grease, just a little layer on there. Then I'm going to stick this thing right on the housing like so. And then I finally get to wipe all this red and tacky off of everything because we are done with that. So then the next step here is you're going to put the Planetary Gears in, and if you have the stock kit, you know, you can run all 4 planetaries, you can run 2, and 2 helps the car to rotate better through the turns. It kind of acts almost like a lighter diff oil, but you don't, like lighter diff oils, they can overheat and then they don't work as well. So a lot of people will go using a 2-gear diff, which is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to put it on this new mag shaft that I have from Brood. We're going to test it for them to see how it holds up. But if you don't have a solid shaft like I do, then use this one and just put it on 2 and leave these other 2 floating, and it'll work fine. And then the other thing, they give you these washers and these little teeny O-rings, and the washers and O-rings are a tuning option, and for me, I'm going to use the washers but not the O-rings. The O-rings kind of stiffen things up, and I don't want things to be stiff, so we will stick those washers in there. Like so. And everything feels good in there. Yeah, the one main reason why I like the single shaft versus this whole shaft is you can fill and put a little more diff oil in these. And so I like, you know, a little more diff oil also prevents it from overheating and losing the characteristics of the oil. Okay, so then once you get this thing all installed in here, then the next step is you're gonna fill up this thing with diff oil. And the manual likes to the manual tells you to fill it right to the top of the cross pin. There's a lot of racers that'll actually weigh things. And I'm gonna mess around with that and see what this thing weighs, and I'll do that off camera because I need my yeah, I'll just do that off camera, but I'll show you guys. Alright, so I got this thing all filled up to just above the cross pin like the manual states, and with the mag pin I am at 28.7, and that includes this top half and these 4 screws, so the total build with everything would be 28.7. So then I'm gonna stick this cap on, and it's important that you get the holes aligned, and you might have to just stick like this driver in here to push that gasket in alignment. So yeah, just stick that in there if you need to. And then you're gonna put these screws in. I like to put all 4 of them in first and just get them started. If you pick this thing up, just be careful not to spill oil out because you don't have the top secured yet. So then just check to make sure these are going in straight. If they're not, back them out and help them go in straight. So then before I lock these screws down, I just like to put, I said I was done with this red and tacky, but I like to put just a little dab of red and tacky right under the screw head. So when these, you can see there just a little bit. So when you tighten these screws down, it kind of seals off that hole. So now we can tighten these down. I like to kind of hold this thing on the table until we get at least one of these tightened down. And yeah, you're gonna want to do this like before I go fully tight. I like to bring one more close to tight, and you want to do this in a star pattern to make sure this thing gets seated properly. And, you know, it doesn't have to be gargantuan tight, just some decent resistance. You can kind of see how much force hopefully I'm giving it somewhat on the video, but you can feel it once it kind of ends, and then just go like maybe 1/8 of a turn more on these. And I just like to feel all of them to make sure something weird doesn't. Yeah, so those all feel good. And then you just check this diff. Yeah, it feels nice and smooth. And if you got any excess of that red and tacky, you can go ahead and wipe it off now. And if for any event you've overfilled your diff, sometimes you can get like oil coming out of these holes, and like I'll just take this hex driver and stick it in there and squeegee that out, and then you can wipe it off this top if you get that there. Anyway, that completes bag 5 of this build. Hope you found this useful, and stay tuned for the continuation of this series. And if you do like these videos, please like and subscribe.